Unmute. There you go. So when I speak now, can you see lines going up and down on the screen? Can you hear us?
On the VU meter.
That thing.
The little thing that goes, yeah. Building all
The thing. Can you see if there you go, it's definitely working. Turn that off. Can you?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Log sound stuff.
I
I would put those first.
The camera and the sound is working, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if we have sound and camera up, shall we get a take?
Light and camera action.
All right, then in that case, it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nicholas Kwatnowski,
Here.
Tamara Banks,
No,
Ruby Bravo.
here,
Forgive me if I spell any.
that was correct.
If I pronounce anyone's name wrong. Joe Brito, Justin Chenault, Rupert Farley, he sent apologies. Denise Flatley,
Here,
Robert Fogg,
Yeah.
Glenn Goldsmith, Larry Gross, Yolanda Hipsky, Michael Hoyt, David McLaughlin,
Here.
Ken Pogue, James Powell,
Here.
Matt Rowe, Rodney Thomas, Timothy Welsh,
are any of these people online?
Alan Watkins,
Here.
Clinton Wells, Kevin Wilkinson.
Present.
Have I left anybody out? Anybody in the room that I haven't called?
Me.
We welcome Linda from VDOT. I can't recall if you're a board member or, okay.
Very helpful.
We'll make a note of Linda's attendance, and the staff tonight are myself, Ian Hollis, and our lovely intern leader, Hinkle, who's running the computer. So you've got a standby team tonight because John and others are on leave. So there you go.
All right, thank you. So
you do have a quorum.
Next item, approval of May 8th agenda with an amendment, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it bypassed us all, but at the very bottom of the agenda, item 12, the next meeting is not tonight. It is actually on June the 12th. We thank Ruby Bravo for pointing that out to us, and we'll just make that amendment with your permission.
So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Approval of the April 10th CTAC meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
One
All opposed?
abstention, because I'm not here.
Okay. So passes with one abstention. Item number 5, do we have any public comment? Seeing no members of the public.
Any online?
Oh, do we have any online?
Anybody
No.
online wishes to make public comment?
Do we have any emails?
No.
Okay, then moving on. VDOT and transit report problem. I did get an email from John about this, about apparently, I feel like this is worth bringing up here, which is that apparently the 17 interchange is close to completion.
So Linda Suit is here from VDOT tonight, and perhaps we should just, with your permission, Mr. Chair, give her a moment. She'd like to just give you an update on that.
I view that as germane to VDOT.
Would have brought up the email that you probably read. But yes, it is close to completion. Ian, if you have, I sent it to you as well.
I'll just look for it in
Yeah.
a second.
But I think it's in May, at the end of May. And so a lot of the issues that have been brought before this committee by members will be hopefully resolved by then. But our communications director, Kelly Hammond, still said that she'd make the superintendent of that project aware that some of the barrels were out of place as they shifted lanes to do work.
The email reads, I have good news to report. Construction on Route 17 as part of the I-95 northbound Rappahannock River crossing will be complete on May 17th, 2024. Crews are finishing applying the new final layer of pavement and pavement markings on Route 17 near exit 133, which will address the rough pavement and the potholes committee members raised. Crews are working during daytime and evening hours to finish the project over the next 2 weeks, along with finishing the new median, curb, and gutter. VDOT Communications will pass these concerns on to the construction team regarding the feedback on the shifting barrels.
Thank you for bringing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did they ever take care of the street sign error?
They removed the incorrect street sign,
But there's no sign at all
but they
now?
did not replace it with anything at all.
So,
There are, I do believe there are still some signage questions, because you brought up that right lane that turns into a turn lane, and there's really no warning. I drive through that on my way here.
Okay.
And I did not see a sign there, and I was looking at the time.
Yeah, I received a response on that, and the response was everything was as it was supposed to be and accepted, basically.
Cool.
I did not say that, but.
No, that was,
I will trust that my colleagues did
Yeah.
indeed say that, but I also.
the
heard-
email you forwarded me from him, yes.
Right, and I know that at some point, I can't remember, I don't think it was you. It might have been Joe Brio, but I'm not sure, was saying that he was asking about certain signs, and I was told that VDOT doesn't have responsibilities over those, it's the
Right.
county level.
Yeah, the county has to create the street sign for that.
oh,
Imagine. The thing that was funny though is because the incorrect sign said that it was going to be South Gateway Drive. And that was removed, but right across the intersection where South Gateway Drive is, there's no sign that says South Gateway Drive. So why didn't they put it in? that
right over
location?
there, yeah. So now both of them don't have a sign.
Yeah. And
But they-
there are signs above it if you're heading northwest.
Uh-huh.
If you look up at the traffic lights, there's a sign that says, the correct street, right or left.
Okay,
That, but actually down at ground level, nothing.
interesting.
I see the I'm sorry, I see the residency engineer, fairly ready. Bring it up again with file.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that when they finish with the new surface, they'll put all the new arrows on, which hopefully will indicate which are the turning lanes and which are the through lanes and which of all of that. So
They don't always. In this area, we have a lot of lanes where it's straight through, and then there's another intersection where it's a right turn, and there's just merging back into the through, because there's also a general problem with drivers and not knowing that you don't pass on the right side.
Yeah.
But
They don't.
yeah, but that's a different thing. But yeah, so I don't know how you had a point.
I was recently at a town hall meeting in Lee's Hill homeowners association. And oh boy, did I get a earful. 4 Mile Fork Route 1 208 intersection. It is now by mid-afternoon, late afternoon, backing up almost to Hood Drive. I went through it the other day, and by watching the lights, no more than 5 cars were getting through the intersection. So there may be a timing cycle issue there. The next one, which I'm sure you're familiar with and you've heard this many times, South Point Parkway and Route 1, especially those that are coming down South Point and trying to go south on Route 1. They're backing up to Lowe's now. And this especially at times around lunch to, when you get to that heavy traffic. And the last one, which was funniest one, they ever gonna get the Route 17 bridge done over 95? It seems like it's been under construction for years.
That's what,
You mean the 17 South? Bridge?
17, this is about on, no, on, it's south, it,
no, it's 133.
no.
No, it'd be like.
No, this is the one that's up by Cosmo Corner, that goes up over 95.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
One down there in spot.
it seems that it's never getting done.
I can
And
certainly check on that.
our folks our residents are, we, on our south side, which is off 17, I'm on the north side, which is off mine, and life is good. I'm glad I don't live off 17. But yeah, if you could look into that to see if, just find out when the long nightmare will be over.
At our transportation meeting last month, they said it would probably be around. But
I was through there this week and yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath.
and we'll have a transportation meeting tomorrow night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, there's Joe.
Actually, question on the jurisdiction of VDOT 17 in Stafford County. Speaking of life timing. I don't know if it's something but it's something to bring up to someone who lives in that area. The crossing with Litchfield and 17, you're lucky if you get 2 cars. At like. That's right. That was a live, more?
Sorry. I'll try to make mine brief. So I want to go back to 17 north and then so off the exit northbound. I don't know, the northbound exit that then goes to, 17. I'm assuming that once they finish it, but it may be moved, but there are 2 problems there that are causing a little bit of, we'll just say, consternation for drivers as they've opened that far left lane now.
Okay.
They don't know where to go. If they manage to realize they can use that lane, they have no clue where to go, and then they slam on their brakes when the other people turn.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there's a pretty sizable lip right now from where the new macadam is down and old stuff is. So coming immediately out of that, off that stop bar, there's probably a 3-inch.
That's
step
new,
up.
that's the last couple of days. isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's been the
I think
last few
that,
days after they resurfaced. So it's pretty sizable. So, anybody with a car lower than a truck is slowing down to, so I think as far as moving cars through the intersection, that addressing that might help. And also, I don't want to call them dummy lines, but something where it tells people where their lane is going to end up as they make that turn, might also be helpful. I had a truck with a bad trailer in front of me that slammed on its brakes, and of course I couldn't tell because the semi truck was going on the side.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, if you have something to add to this one, then I can wait.
I was just gonna say, when you come off, when you're headed 95 north and you get off at that exit, because the sign still indicates that only the right lane is the exit. It doesn't indicate that both lanes are. So what happens on 95 is everybody thinks they need to get over. And so that first right lane is backed up for miles, because everybody thinks and there's nobody going in the second lane. So I'm always like, woohoo, good for me, because I know it's gonna go. But it needs to say that both.
yeah, I don't think we need to address
Yeah.
that.
Level only check.
Yeah.
I agree. The other, so aside from that, the other one, and I think this goes towards the 17th South in Spotsylvania. They're at Hospital Boulevard, where they recently there was a shoulder and then the lane, and they switched them. So the shoulder is now next to the median. There's a big yellow line in the middle, and so there's not a run-up lane or a space that people can use as a run-up lane, and the yield sign. I thought there wasn't one there. It's buried in the trees.
In which
that are right
turning
there.
movement?
So if you're passing Sheets on your right, turning on to 17 South from Hospital Drive
Okay.
or Hospital Boulevard, there's a lane, and it's one of those kind of like funneled turn lanes where you may or may not usually see a yield sign.
Mhm.
And so it's hidden behind all the trees. So if they can kind of clear that, I guess, or maybe even move it. Again, that's something that might solve itself if they're finishing in June with the rest of that project, that may become 2 lanes that are usable or some other
Yeah,
thing.
we would still be expected for safety now.
Right, exactly. And the last thing to add on to the hood driving, there are 2 lanes there at the light that people can use to turn, but the far left lane going from Hood to Courthouse is so short that people don't even use it anymore. So when they first started shutting the other lane down on that road, it wasn't really well marked, so people sometimes knew, and you could get people side by side. That might double your throughput, especially you've got, the rest of that lane is closed all the way down to the Royal Farms. So you could use some of that space theoretically to add another turn lane.
Tell me your name again and who you represent. I can't.
I'm
see from here.
Clinton.
Clinton Wells.
From
From
Spotsylvania.
Spotsylvania.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I drive all of those roads every day, so
Hey.
that would be a great help to me.
All right, any further VDOT or transit reporter problem? All right, moving on.
I'll keep mine for the TAC, otherwise Linda won't come back to this meeting.
You know, I mind getting the information, and sometimes, like I said in a previous meeting, I'll go on to the website and put in the report a problem.
Oh,
And then I will call the appropriate person and say, hey, I just want to make sure that you're tracking this, that it gets answered, you know.
See?
so.
Well, we really appreciate your
You got
your help.
an
and
in-house expert right on your committee.
Just try to-
We've gotten,
it's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
well, and since you've started coming to these meetings, I feel like a lot more has been resolved. I mean, I haven't been going to CTAC that long, but it feels like more is getting resolved. So we do appreciate your.
Can I say the situation for the right turn lane that backs up all the way to Walmart that you were talking?
No, yeah.
We are looking at making that dual right turn lane. If you'll notice that the guardrail that is down there, they've been looking at extending that box culvert back to the right there, and
But I would then assume that they will still keep at least, because right now, if you make it the one lane that essentially backs up is the one that's to make the left onto, yeah, the 2 lane. You've got the designated left-hand turn lane, then you've got the straight to go into the next shopping center, or you can make a left, and then you've got the one to make a right.
but they're gonna make two rights. We'll have a short right, another additional right turn lane there, which will help that backup that goes all the way up.
Oh, yeah,
Sometimes it goes all the way past Lowe's.
yeah, I know, I live near there, it's like,
Our problem is the Route 1 northbound that backs way on up past 17.
Mm.
I sat through it 4 times last night to go to Lowe's. And that is a situation that is gonna be very difficult to be.
I guess what gets me is there's a road between Lowe's and the Walmart. Why can't that be extended to Route 17, Mills Drive and Route 1? And it just seems to me it'd be just a straight connection there, and it would defuse the traffic from one area of Route 1 to and split it up.
I think they talked about that in some sort of a plan 3 years back, but it seemed like it fell away. I think they were calling it a super ramp like that, and it was active for a while, but then I haven't seen it lately.
It's only like a mile section.
Usually it's big money, that's the problem.
Even if it was just 2-lane extension.
Yeah.
so-
Anything that's elevated is gonna cost a whole lot of money.
Well,
Okay.
it would have to go up and over top of 95 is the problem.
Cost money.
And that was ruled out.
All right, before we get too deep into this, since this was not necessarily on the agenda, let's move on to action and discussion items. 7A, nomination of officers. We have elections next month, and it's always good to be able to ruminate over our nominees. As I said last meeting, I will not be running for re-election. So next up is Spotsy.
I've been asked by Lori Hayes and Tim Welsh to put his name in for chairman. Tim cannot be here because of a graduation at Virginia Tech.
Okay. So we have a nomination for Tim Welsh. Alan?
And going along with tradition, also, I wanted to nominate Tim as well, being that he's not here today.
Okay.
Wait, we have-
I think it's only fair. I got sucked into this when I wasn't here. Now, should we put in the bylaws that the punishment for not showing up to a meeting is your chair?
Any nominations for vice chair, or are there any further nominations?
Yeah, any further nominations for chair? It would have to be from someone from Spotsy. Okay, so no further nominations for chair. Any nominations for vice chair?
Still, some could still come in next month.
Yes,
I'm
Unlikely, but
unaware.
yes.
election's not till next month. So.
Yeah.
Election is only next month. The reason why we do this is not because it's required, but just otherwise you come to the election and nobody's got any idea. No one's asked anyone if they're available, and it
Right.
sort of
Yeah.
becomes a bit of.
They're interested.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Been through it.
Vice Chair of Fredericksburg.
But yeah, vice chair for Fredericksburg. Do we have any nominations? Alan?
Being that he's the only one who seems here most of the time, so Dave.
That's not true.
Sorry, David, kind of is.
Looks that way.
I was gonna say.
In terms of Fredericksburg, so would you accept the nomination?
Well, I think I think, well, it's not my position to, but I'll reach out to the other candidates and from the,
Let's see if we find anyone else.
hey, if somebody could step up. It's not, being a vice, that job's a hard job, you know.
These days, you never know when you might end up as chair.
Dave, I guess
gonna
the
live-
challenge is to you to find somebody else, otherwise you're it.
It's really for the chair.
It's been it before.
I'd be fine with you, so
Okay.
self-preservation, I guess. Okay, so we have nominations for chair and vice chair, then that is that item on the agenda. Next is an action item, endorse resolution 2435, adopting an amendment to the FY 24-27 Transportation Improvement Program to adjust funding for UPC FRT 0019 FX Vigos Transit Maintenance Facility HVAC.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Do we have discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries. So endorsed. 7C, CMAX STBG projects and draft spreadsheets. This is an action item. Can you describe how this is an action item?
So whether you wish to endorse the list, this list is currently out for public comment. So that's the first part of action item, is that we have 30 days in which the public may comment on these projects and on the fact that we're going to fund them within the next month. So the public comment period comes to an end the day before the policy committee this month. So in May, on the, gosh, I've forgotten the date.
May 9th. Just
Yeah,
tomorrow.
that's on there.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, but the policy committee meeting is not tomorrow. The
Oh.
Policy committee is the
meeting-
13th,
Sorry.
so it would be the 12th.
So, yeah, so you may comment tonight, for example, on any of these projects, and then the policy committee will hold a
No,
public hearing at the policy committee meeting on the 13th. And after the public hearing, they will then close the public comment period permanently, and they will then vote on this list of projects. So we've shown this to most FAMPO committees once before, but what we've got for you now is the actual list with the dollar values. So you can see the existing projects that we are funding. They were in your pack, which I think you got on by email. So those are the actual projects. And then the dollar values that we're allocating to them. We initially got the usual funding, which is about $5.5 million to allocate. However, VDOT informed us that there was additional funding this year. So it's about $8 million we're actually allocating. And there are no special provisions. There was a discussion about setting aside some funds to conduct studies and preparation for the next round of smart scale, but the policy committee voted that down. So the money's all been allocated to projects. And Lida, if you just go back up. Okay, after the existing projects, there will be a set of new projects. So those are the new projects that have been added. You can see them listed there on the left, and then the various amounts of funding that we're giving to those projects. And we follow a methodology that allocates funding in percentages. So if you just go up to those pie charts, there you go. So for the congestion mitigation and air quality funding, and also for the carbon reduction funding, we allocate 65% to roadways, 15% to transit, 20% to active transportation, and some funding for studies. And then on the right, you'll see surface transportation block grant funding. Again, 60% for roadways, 15% for transit, 15% for active transportation, and 10% for studies. And there's a wrinkle in that the money for active transportation for STGB, the one on the right, that all goes to Stafford County. And the reason for that is the transportation management area in North Stafford is part of the Washington, DC metropolitan urbanized area. And so we receive the STGB money mostly because of that area in Stafford being linked to DC. So our policy is that we allocate 15% of the STGB money back to Stafford County for active transportation, for sidewalks, bike paths, shared use paths, that kind of thing. And then also we allocate 15% of the money for transit that supports the transportation management area in North Stafford. However, Stafford County has to apply for those funds by submitting projects. If they don't submit projects, then the money gets allocated to projects anywhere in the region. But they get first dibs on the money. So last year they didn't come up with projects, so we graciously allowed them to heap up the money. So this year we've allocated last year's money and this year's money to shared use paths in North Stafford. So you'll see in the list there's a bike path, a shared use path that's been allocated money. And the transit money, there wasn't a specific transit project from North Stafford. So the transit 15% went to Fred Transit for the next set of Fred Transit projects. So that's how the money is allocated. It's not on the basis of somebody's preference or wishes or whatever else. We just take those percentages, we apply it to the money, and then we allocate it based on the scores that each project gets in the scoring system. And this year there were no unusual items. It all just went automatically by score, starting with the top scoring project. We work down and we allocate in those percentages exactly to the dollar. Basically, we allocate those fundings, and you can see above that the money that was available in financial year 2030, and then some additional funding was given to us by VDOT, which has also been allocated. So now you've seen the list of projects, the old projects that we gave new money to, and then the new projects which we've given the first batch of money to throughout the region. Would you scroll down again, go through and to the very bottom? Next one. Okay. You can see that we've completed the screening. We've met with the applicants. We've presented the draft scoring, which you saw earlier in the year. We released the materials. The scores are finalized. Now we've allocated the funding, put the draft out for public comment until the 15th. And then we have recommended these allocations based on the methodology. And we've got it on the policy committee's agenda for their May meeting to have a public hearing in the meeting and then to approve the money to the projects. So there's lots of other technical detail, but I won't bore you with it. Just that gives you a sort of an overview. Happy to take any comments or whatever from the committee as you like, Mr. Chair.
Do you have any questions or concerns or thoughts? Do we have them? I'm sorry.
It's just-
Lost track. Yes.
The last sentence, the last bullet, that has to deal with, and that was at the TAC committee, there was a lot of discussion regarding how they were going to potentially look at the methodology, the way everything is worked next time, so I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, every time we allocate funding, somebody submits a project that's unusual, or they submit it in an unusual way. And then when we score the project and allocate the funding, we discover we get an unusual outcome that really isn't anticipated by the methodology. And then the next year we go and change the rules slightly to try and fix that problem. And then we run it and we take projects and we score and we allocate funding, and then we find a new wrinkle. So the wrinkle we found this year is that Stafford submitted on one application form a project that applied for both CMAC and STGB funding. And they said that their requested funding amount was 9 million. Spotsy applied for a particular project with 2 applications, and they submitted the one for CMAC and the one for STGB, and they indicated the dollar value that they were asking for in CMAC and the dollar value that they were asking for STGB. Now that didn't look too troublesome until we started scoring those projects. And then it raises a lot of questions. Like, for example, the one that Stafford submitted, is it 9 million split in 2, so 4.5 and 4.5 for the STGB and the CMAC? Or is it 9 million and 9 million? So it's actually 18 million. Or is it some other combination which we can't guess at because we don't know, because nobody told us? So we want to resolve that next round. We want to actually make it clear that you must submit 2 separate applications so we know how to score it, so we don't get into that mess. So that's what that last sentence means. There are little wrinkles like that which you discover when something unusual happens, and then suddenly your methodology seems to skew the result. But you don't know that because it's, I don't know if you've read the thing. It's enough, if you read it at night in bed, it'll put you to sleep in seconds. It's so complicated that it's becoming harder and harder to implement because it's just so complicated. And my personal view is that I'm going to suggest to the policy committee that we come up with a simpler way of allocating the funding that involves less arguing and a whole lot less complication. Because the more complicated it is, the more likely you are to make a mistake. And when you make a mistake, then everybody gets upset because the mistake might be $1 million, right? So I would like to try and simplify it so that and I found an example of another NPO like ours that has a much simpler way of doing this. And I'm going to investigate that a little further to see if we can make it simpler. Because there's always arguments about this. One jurisdiction always thinks like feels like they've been conned out of extra money. And then I have to spend, with my staff of 6, we have to spend meeting after meeting explaining how we got to those scores and explaining why we allocated this project money before we allocated that project money. And it's hard work doing that. So I'd like to see if we can make it simpler, because every time we fix a problem, of course, we make it more complicated for the next round. Well, anyway, those are the projects. That's the funding amounts. If anyone has any questions or comments, that's fine. Otherwise, over to you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions or comments?
I just want to say, I think you and FAMPO staff have been doing a great job.
Thank you, John.
It's very difficult when you have to deal with 20-something elected officials.
It's difficult to deal with one.
I used to be an elected official and I know exactly how it is.
All right, I believe we have a motion, right? On this motion in a second, so.
It's listed as an action item if you wish to endorse the list or not. That's up to you.
So do we have a motion to endorse? Is that correct? No, we do not. Okay. Do I have a motion to endorse? Does anyone want to move to?
Motion to endorse as presented.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so endorsed.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 8.
Smart scale update.
That was endorsed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 7B was endorsed. We're just breezing through today.
Yeah.
We're rolling. Yeah, second to last.
Did good.
Yeah. All right, staff reports, smart scale.
Let's go on this. So this round of smart scale is proving to be rough, frankly. I think you've probably had some input on this before. The rules of the game were changed in January and February. Now, when you've already prepared your projects, when the jurisdictions have been working for months to choose the projects, to design the elements that are going to go into that project, and then they change the rules as late as February, it's really hard because by April, they want your list of projects with the elements in them. So it's been a rough round because the Commonwealth Transportation Board made up their mind very late in the game as to what the rules of the game are. And you need those rules early because you have to tweak your project to fit with the rules. Otherwise you score badly and get no money. So it's been rough. Next slide. There we go. So that's the timeline we're currently working on. The pre-application round has now happened. VDOT has been doing the screening to check whether our projects meet the standard. In May and June, we have to prioritize those projects. So we submitted 5 on the FAMPO list and 5 on the GWRC list. We now have to work towards 4 on the FAMPO list and 4 on the GWRC list. So the TAC is considering this now. They're going to talk to their jurisdictions. They're going to come back to the beginning of May meeting with a recommendation as to which projects get dropped, but there's more information on that in a moment. Then the final application happens through June, and all the supporting documents have to be in by the 15th of July because they have to be checked, and by the 1st of August, we have to submit. So those last 15 days are not to add documents, but for VDOT to help us screen those documents to check that there are no errors or the map isn't chopped off at the end, or, you know, just basically to check that there are no mistakes. And then we press go. And then OIP, the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment Enrichment, will then spend September through to December scoring those projects. And then they will have in the new year draft allocations of funding where they'll decide, okay, these are the projects that scored the best, and we recommend funding them with this amount of money. And then the CTB considers that for a few months, and then eventually next year they will vote on them, and we'll see how well we do. Next slide. So one of our projects has already been screened out by VDOT. It's the one in the city, US Route 1 and Route 3 interchange. This project has been screened out for multiple reasons. The city changed the project in the last 2 weeks before submission, and the elements they removed were the elements that were giving this project a good score. And they removed them because there's a complicated problem in that if you keep the elements in that they removed, you would need a whole bunch of supporting documentation, and the consultant of the city, I believe their retainer has come to an end, so they would not have been available to produce all those extra documents. It's a complicated thing. So the city has agreed that they will continue to work on the project, get a new consultant, continue to work on this project and resubmit it next round. But it isn't ready now in its current form, and it's not going to meet the minimum criteria of the CTV, I guess. So it's been screened out. So on the FAMPO list, we only have 4 now. I'll get to the GWRC list. Do you want to take the question now?
It's a real quick question. Was a lot of it the environmental impacts of what that project?
No, it was the ramps. I forget what it had to do with the on and off ramps that had to have a special set of documentation, and you needed a consultant to create that documentation, and the city's consultant had been let go. or their contract hadn't been renewed or something. I don't know the detail.
Thank you.
But the ramps are the problem. They cut them off and that caused that project to no longer qualify. Okay. So the city list, we don't have to remove one. We only have 4.
Great.
Well, just hold on before you think it's that great. Next slide. So
I mean, it's
these,
one I'm focused
these
on.
are the GWRC list, project list. And we have to agree as FAMPO which one to remove. One of those has to come off. But now, if you see there, 208 pipeline corridor improvements, just flip back to the previous page. Oh, it's not. Now, do you see there, V.208 pipeline levels road? Well, Spotsylvania also has an issue with their projects this round because they have submitted 208 pipeline study projects on their local list. And they're also on our 2 lists. And the initial version that they submitted also was not allowed because OIP ruled that you can't have different versions of the same project on different lists. You can only have one bite at the cherry. So we worked with Spotsy and we worked with VDOT, and VDOT staff spent many hours and reworked these projects. So we've now managed to get them to the level where they're not going to be screened out right now. However, what will happen is if they don't get screened out, I believe when they get to be scored, once they're scored, only the one with the highest score is going to remain on the list. The others will be removed because the CTB will not fund multiple projects like that out of the same study. So 2 of the 3 are going to fall off. We just don't know which 2. So it might be on the Spotsylvania's local list, or it might be on one of our lists, because we've now got 1 on each of our lists. So we might already lose one of those projects, but we're not going to know now. We're only going to know when they start scoring, which is going to be in September, by which time we can make no changes, right? So we will not be able to change those 2 projects, and Spotsy will not be able to change the 1, or is it 2? I can't recall. That's on your list. I'm not sure. But anyway, we can't make any changes. We're going to have to accept the fair company.
So we have to drop one of the GWRC ones.
On the next slide here, on the GWRC, one of those has.
So wouldn't it make sense to drop the 208 pipeline if it's already represented in the other 2 lists?
If you want me to get in trouble with Spotsy, then you'll have me answer the question. So I'm going to say nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it really easy to get in trouble with Spotsy? But I'm sorry.
That you'll have to take up. I'm not making any comment on that because really the jurisdictions need to collectively decide.
We have
which
the option
project to remove.
of advising
You may, but
policy.
I'm certainly not going to weigh in on my opinion because it's
Right,
not
that's-
my, it's not my.
But I mean, as CTAC,
we can't.
it's already on the other
I
list,
don't-
isn't it?
No, they're different. So this one is the corridor improvements. The other one's specific to levels of road, which I assume is why they're
Correct.
still banging the drum for both.
I see.
The
But which
county also has, what is that other intersection on 208? The next big intersection
Yes,
down.
before you get to it, yeah, Foster.
Anyway, that intersection,
I think it's Foster.
no, it's
Smith Station.
Smith Station. So the Smith Station intersection is included in the project on
Which one do you want?
Where's my card?
on Spotsy's list. So 2 of those 3 are going to
Yeah,
get
that's
screened out, and we don't know which at this stage. So I can't answer that question.
I mean, it seems like as a region, we're limiting our scope if we have too many of the same kind of things that are.
Well, we're limiting the other ones because the other ones would have less of a chance of that one done. Is that not correct?
That's against.
Just from
It's against the other smart scale stuff than
Good
the
question.
state.
Not as a policy question, but as
so
a gaming question.
The question I can't answer for you is how well they will score.
Mm,
And at the end of the day,
I know, because I've been trying to get an answer.
what
to
you
that question.
really need is to pick the ones that are gonna score the best.
Right.
Right, that's right.
And that's
But-
very hard to determine, particularly because they changed all the rules in January.
Well,
So we
so,
don't have a perfect crystal ball that can say which of these will score the best. We have to sort of guess based on the criteria and all sorts of other things.
well,
We can't really answer the question. So even if I wanted to give you an opinion, it's gonna be a useless opinion because I can't tell you which one of those 5 is gonna score the worst.
well, I raise issue with the idea that it's a useless opinion if it might not be a perfect opinion. A flawed opinion is still has use, is my point. So because I look at this and I would like to see CTAC have a voice in this.
Sure.
And
I'm happy to answer questions about those projects if you want. But
I
I'm
mean,
just not gonna tell you, I think you should chop off that
Oh.
one because that jurisdiction's gonna have my guts.
That's right.
And the next grouping of slides actually has maps or drawings of all the different proposals.
well, we've had these for a few months. I mean, I know I've looked at them.
Yeah, we handed printed copies out last month.
Yeah.
So you've got the.
Do you have a list of scored
I'm sorry.
criteria?
It's a thick manual. There are,
You
there
can
are,
read it, Joe.
well, there are
They just keep making it more and more.
big block criteria, so it's economic development, it's
Safety.
environmental impact, it's safety, it's congestion relief, and what's the one I'm forgetting?
Smart scale technical guide, there are several versions, but for the one from it's either the end of 23 or
January.
24. Yeah.
It was approved in January, and that is the full answer to your question, but it's how many pages? 100 and something pages.
How about impacts to private property?
No,
Criteria?
that's not one of the criteria.
No.
So there are these five criteria: economic development. What does it do for economic development? What are the environmental issues involved with this? Is it good for the environment? Does it relieve congestion? Land use is the one I'm forgetting. And land use, they've reduced the impact of the land use score. Safety, I mentioned here. Land use is the one I forgot. So those are the 5. It's congestion relief, economic development, environmental impacts, safety improvements, and land use. And the land use factor has been reduced, so it has a minimal impact this round. Whereas before, our projects from this region used to score really well on land use factors. Now the land use factors are so small that it's not going to help us. So we think we're going to do badly generally this round. Nothing we can do about it. The Commonwealth Transportation Board has voted on the criteria change. We're stuck with it.
Mr. Wells, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna
Comment?
say, historically, what do you say that broader scope projects or narrower scope projects tend to score better? Because they are competing priorities, right?
So there are 2 different funding pots: high priority projects and district grant funding. So the jurisdictions, the 2 counties and the city, can apply for both. We at FAMPO GWRC can only apply for high priority project funding. High priority project funding this round, that nice long handbook I was telling you about of rules, they have written into the rules this year that they're going to be favoring bigger projects. So in other words, the smaller projects really should go on the local list. The bigger projects should go on the FAMPO and GWRC list, because that's the way the HPP rules are written. So you really don't want any small projects on our list because they're going to do badly in the scoring.
So which of these would qualify as large in your opinion?
They all, the fact that they are on the screen there now means that they have not been screened out because they don't qualify. So they all qualify now at a level. In other words, VDOT has said that first FAMPO project in the city they are screening out because it's not going to qualify. The 208 projects almost got screened out. We've managed to save them by tweaking the project, so they are not screening out, they qualify. So right now, as of today, 9 out of the 10 qualify. But they're not going to all score equally well. Some are going to score better and others are going to score.
So is there a way though that we can rank what we see on the screen from smallest to largest?
Gosh,
So there's
not
lots of ways to
Right.
rank things, right? It's how much it costs, how much impact it's gonna have, what we think we might get versus what we think we might not get, which is the guessing game. My question would be, you know, we had the opportunity to put 5 projects in each category. If we could only put 2 in each category, you know, all of us, if we could come up with, you know, the 2 that we know, or the 3 that we know, we would put on that list. And I know, Ian, you don't want to put your opinion out there because you get the feedback for it, but you're the subject matter expert here. So I feel like, you know, giving us some quantifiable choices that say, you know, this is gonna affect a population of, you know, 5 square miles, that's gonna, you know, make a huge difference versus other project that's, you know.
So instead of trying to guess for you which projects are going to be good, bad, or ugly, let me give you a little more information about each project. The first project is to add another so that first project is in Stafford County, and that is an interchange project where Central Parkway intersects with US 1 and where the same road intersects with I-95. So it's 2 major intersections with highways, right? Centerport Parkway goes across between I-95 and US 1, and both intersections are being upgraded. That's a fairly major project that's dealing with intersections, big highway intersections. Second project is from a VDOT pipeline study on corridor 208, and that particular project has got both the Smith Station intersection with 208 and the Levels Road intersection with 208. So both intersections are put into that project. The 208 one on the FAMPO list is only one of those intersections. So this is the bigger one. Warrenton Road, widening from Stafford Lakes Parkway to Parkway Village, that you can, just from the way it's worded, you can tell what that is. It's adding lanes to the roadway, Warrenton Road. Enon Road, this is a new road. This is a completely new roadway. It's connecting Enon Road with Centerport Parkway by means of a new section of roadway. Right now,
A long time ago.
right now, you cannot get to the on and off ramp on I-95 at the Centerport Parkway on ramp or off ramp if you live on Enon Road or further south. There is no way to get there. So you can only get on I-95 at US 17.
It used to connect before they built the interchange.
Right.
So it doesn't connect anymore. So this roadway, you can see it there in that map, will connect through. So now if you live in Southern Stafford, you will have 2 off ramps and on ramps that you can use onto I-95, not just the one. So you'll have a second option, second way of getting onto I-95.
And those of us who work in the south end of the county or work in the north end of the county who live in the south end of the county don't have to go over 95, which is why I'm a very big fan of this
So you can
project.
avoid that.
Alan?
This is definitely an aspect that the county had always considered because of the fact that if there's going to be a new bridge and parkway that goes up Plantation, that once it gets to there, this will give you the opportunity to have the alternate northern route that will then go and connect over to Centerport Parkway. And then down the road, literally, they intend to connect from Centerport Parkway up to where the Pine Road Courthouse Road.
Well, there's already a connection there, isn't there?
Into those.
Yeah, well, the idea is it's
So these are 3 separate projects.
Same road.
right, but they're all part of creating a new corridor.
Correct. But of course, each one has to be evaluated on its own merits because the county may or may not support one or 2 or 3 of these legs, and the funders, being either Smart Scale or the federal government, may not fund one of the legs. So you have to look at them as separate legs. But yes, one day you could potentially have all 3
Well,
lined up.
and this would be central to that. Like you couldn't do it without this, and it has its
Well,
merits on its own.
Without this, you could still build the river crossing.
You
But
could still build the river crossing, but you couldn't have the north-south corridor.
but you couldn't have the full corridor without this. This is the middle piece. So frankly, this is, I would guess, probably one of the most important parts of this, because it's the middle piece that pulls everything else together. If you don't have this, then you've got 2 separate roads that don't connect.
Yeah, you'd have to go from courthouse to
But if you
Route 1 and then get back on it.
if you don't build the other 2 legs that you were just talking about, this still is useful.
Yeah.
Because it provides Southern Stafford with another way to get, if there's a crash on I-95, you suddenly have another option,
Yes.
which you didn't have before. So that's what that one is.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, if you want to. I'm just pointing out that at this point, this is starting off 2-lane road, but it's being kind of constructed so there's plenty of space on the sides.
Expanded, yeah.
It could be widened in the future.
Oh, wait, that's new.
And that, well, at the moment, there's no buildings or
Right.
homes close to the roadway
Right.
that's being proposed. So you would be able to one day widen it if you needed to.
Right.
Joe.
I just want to say that, that road improvement was part of the Mine Road Extension project that would connect Route 610 to Route 17, and that was approved in 1988.
And it's in the county park plan. And I have to say,
Only took 35 years.
I should really disclose to you that yeah, I can say this. I pushed heavily to have this project developed. It was recommended again in the East-West mobility study that FAMPO did. And frankly, whether or not you build the other 2 legs, this one just seems to make a whole lot of sense. We as planners focus on building a grid of roads, right? Because when one road is blocked for whatever reason, how the heck do you get anywhere? So this leg is frankly one of the most important, because it provides you another way to get there when everything else goes.
It would provide rail stations,
That's
way
the
to
one
get to the airport.
So that's the one I'm most strongly like. I guess I must just be honest about that. However, I can't tell whether in Smart Scale it will score well. So this might not be the best way of getting it funded. A federal grant might be the best way of getting it funded. So I'm not by any means saying you must pick this one, because what if it's not going to score well in Smart Scale, but it will score much better in a federal grant. So I don't.
But we're only
I
picking
thought
one to
so.
cut, right? We're only
You
picking the one.
want to cut. So I'm just going through them to
Yeah.
tell you more about them, to give you information, because you said you wanted
Well, and we
my
could,
opinion, and I'm trying not to give you my opinion. Not very successfully. The 5th one,
But you're giving context and I appreciate it.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
trying
no.
to do, is give you context.
So we gotta treat you like ChatGPT. If you were an Ian, same
Oh,
the same level of intelligence.
So this last one comes from another VDOT study, a STAR study. This is Old Plank Road and 5 Mile Road to Salem Church Road leg. And I don't know the minute detail of this particular project. I don't know whether Linda wants to comment on it. But you've got a map of it in last month's pack, and there is, I think, a map in this pack as well. Lida, are you able to find that? There you go. These are all the R cuts and through cuts and all that kind of thing on Plank Road. So you can see there the old Plank Road intersection. I think it deals with 3 intersections, if I'm right, on Route 3. And so each one, it upgrades the intersection. So you get extra stacking space, you get additional turning space and that kind of thing. So it increases the capacity of 3 of these intersections. So it's a series of intersections on Route 3. There you can see as they go through the different slides, each one is given the same treatment So it's an older study of VDOT which recommended these through cuts some years ago, and now finally we're getting it in as a small scale
You
application.
can't go straight across the road once they fix it. They've taken out the crossover.
Yes, and what it will do is increase the total throughput.
Yeah, they're
reduce-
a hard place. They have to do something about
Yeah.
it.
So you reduce the delay time, you put more vehicles through there, but you do limit the number of turning movements you can make through the intersection. Trade-off. You can't have, with transportation, you can't unfortunately have everything. Unless you have all the space in the world, then you can have everything.
Do you have any really about what problem that's fixing, other than?
No.
I know two of these, I don't, not familiar with the third, but I know at least the one at.
So it's the
Old Road is not that bad.
the travel demand model showed that if you do this, you increase the capacity of the intersection. So you put more vehicles through the intersection. But the trade-off is that you lose certain turning movements, which you can't do anymore.
So it's just putting
But-
emphasis on clearing Route 3
Yes.
rather than the side.
But in the context of this conversation, the other trade-off, the slot on the GWRC list. Like outside of the transportation side of this, the practical side of it is. I like, so kind of what you're saying is like that intersection's not that bad. So my question becomes, and maybe this, I don't know, maybe I'm just me, but like. My question becomes, is this something we want to use up one of our 4 slots with, if it's not that bad?
Well, look, each jurisdiction submits to FAMPO what they think their top 3 or whatever projects are, right?
Mhm.
And then they end up, after the TAC workshops and VDOT works on the projects and all that,
Highest.
they end up on this list based on what the TAC feels is the best deal.
Right.
And then VDOT comments and other people comment, DRPT comment, and they end up on this list. So the fact that it's already on this list means that the county believes that this is one of their top 3 problem areas that does fulfill the small scale criteria. Because there's some projects that are not going to fulfill all the criteria for small scale. So within these criteria, the county certainly believes that this is one of their 3 most important projects, and that's why they put it on the list.
But my point is that the conversation we're having right now is for whether CTAC endorses or does not, like.
Yes.
CTAC having a voice in, hey, this is what we think should be the final 4. And I'm not trying to pick on Spotsylvania, I realize I said something about Spotsylvania today, but if this is something that we as CTAC think, oh, that's not so bad, then we could say like, hey, could this be the one that doesn't get put through, or?
Yeah, you're free to make whatever resolution.
I'm not saying this should be it, I'm just saying we have the option.
You do have the option. Leader, could you just go back to the list again of the 5?
I will, for full disclosure, say I don't think the one widening is important either, so.
There you go. So those are the 5. The TAC will have to come to some sort of a resolution at the next TAC meeting. And it's not always unanimous, I have to say. We try to get consensus. We try to see if one of the projects isn't starting to look bad, and then we remove it. And if not, we just have to vote. And then whichever gets the most votes for removal is the one that gets removed. But those are the 5. So I've tried to give you more information, more context, what those projects will do. And I don't have a favorite that I want to remove. I told you I have one favorite that I want to remain. But I don't have a favorite that I want to remove because none of them are terrible projects. They're all good projects. Some maybe achieve more than others. And my big worry is I can't predict how Smart Scale is going to score this round. So I can't be 100% certain which are going to get the better scores. I don't know, Linda, if VDOT has any comments as well, but that's what
Lately, it's a dynamic organization.
Yeah.
Still coming up with answers.
Dynamic
true.
organization, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I want to defend the Warrington Road widening project. We have 2 new schools open in 2 years.
2 what that are gonna open?
High school 6.
Yeah.
Oh, high school, yeah.
High school number 6 and elementary school 18 is gonna open, and they're gonna use that intersection at Village Parkway.
That's a good point.
And that intersection currently gets backed up all the way the Holly Corner Road very often. And it really needs an improvement there, at the very least, put in a right turn lane.
But that's,
And then, the college is also having, 500 new students coming in, that's,
the academy, yeah.
and they have 2 more phases for the college that they can build on that campus. So there's gonna be a lot of, you know, traffic there. And then you have the Westlake project, which has 350 acres of M1 that could be used for warehouses. That's coming online and building the roads there now. So that section of road is gonna be very busy very soon.
But the stretch that would be widened is the stretch from Stafford Lake, like basically the one that is adjacent to the college, right?
From the college to the alley.
Yeah. So. I don't know, yeah,
Just the reality of the situation will be that when the TAC committee meets in the very beginning of next month, their expertise and all the input they have from all of their planners, I think the weight of their decision is going to be stronger than our recommendation.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I don't know if it's even worthwhile to tell you this.
Well, then my question to the committee is, do we want to endorse or not endorse any of this, or do we want to just let it be?
So you suggest because we meet after the TAC, we could then weigh in at the next meeting, because we'd have the input from the TAC?
No, I think whatever the TAC decides at the beginning of next month is going to be what gets forwarded past us to the policy committee.
We can, yes, we would ultimately, or say, no, we don't agree with it.
Right.
Ruby?
I guess my only comment would be, if there was one particular project that really just jumped out and created a lot of heartburn for all of us, I think that would be different. But because there isn't really, I think.
I mean, there's one thing we can't do as FAMPO, not you particularly, but we as FAMPO as a group. The only thing we can't do is not pick one to remove. We have to pick one to remove.
Do we want to, like, the other thing we can do is, like, if there's anything we're particularly in love with, we could nudge and say like, hey, whatever the final list is, make sure this is on it.
Sure.
That's what you might want to do. You might want to say, hey, out of these 5, we really like these 3. Please don't take them
Do
all.
we want to do that?
That you could also do.
Is there consensus for that?
Yeah, I mean,
Because I'd be fine with that.
I mean, the Enon Road connector, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer.
I love it too.
Other than that, I mean, I don't really have.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
So I moved that, well, unless there was others, but I moved that the committee endorse the Enon Road Center Port Way connector.
I thought the suggestion there might be 3 that we were gonna enforce.
Well, that's.
We could do them individually.
Oh, I see.
Second.
All right, so second on the motion to endorse the Enon Road, Centerport Parkway connector. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? One abstention? So,
I moved number 1 be.
motion for number 1, the 136 interchange to Centerport Parkway. Do I have a second? I have a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? To endorse number 1. So, sorry, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? And 1 abstention. All right, so the motion carries. Do we have any other motions for anything else we particularly are fond of?
I just, there's one project that I have a little bit of criticism, and so I would like some feedback on whether or not, anybody else sees this. The, Plank Road, where they want to change, some of the intersections where you can't go straight, like Rutherford Road. you know, when they do these simulation studies for things like this, do they take into account the number of people that are gonna turn left here, cut through whatever business this is, and come out on Tuning Lane, to reroute themselves because they're not happy with not being able to go straight? I mean, people do whatever is force of habit and,
Maybe.
inconvenient. And so, given the opportunity of making a right, and I can't see how far down you would have to go to make a U-turn to, you know, reroute yourself, that's what's gonna happen. And so, when they look at the project, do they take that into consideration?
So, Glenda, this star study, I think might have been before my time. It's not one of the very recent ones. It's an earlier star study for Route 3. And I can't, like from memory, tell you the answer as to what they did. I can say that what they usually do is model the road without the improvements, and then they model it again with the improvements to see what the impacts are, but I can't say whether they did it specifically.
Physical features laid down on the road to prevent that.
The model is based around solving a specific problem, in this case, probably moving traffic north and south on east and west on 3, right? Because cutting an entire
Previous
license.
experience, particularly for our cuts, because it's like when roundabouts happen, we concrete down, you know how to go around it. You have to learn to turn right in order to go left, you know, straight. I think after people get past that education factor, realize, oh, this is probably a lot safer, or there haven't been any crashes or incidents here lately. They start to slowly adopt the new route and traffic.
What I can add, yeah.
As much as I want to see it for Spotsylvania, I don't remember this coming up in our meetings, but isn't this part of the same project that was just built about 12 years ago? That was widened all the way from Salem Church Road all the way out? Widened to 6 lanes?
Is that when they added monuments like that?
Well, they widened it from 4 lanes out to 6 lanes.
I remember they had one.
And that's,
Same problem, different approach.
well, that's what I can understand. We built this 12 years ago, and now we're coming in and having to modify it already this quickly.
Pennsylvania's a great place to live.
So what all of that's valid. What I would say to you is that what I think we agree, because we won't all agree on every detail. What I think the FAMPO staff and the staff of Spotsylvania and the city agree on, and I would say staff and staff as well, is that we've studied in recent history the problems of traffic on Route 3 4 times. VDOT has had 4 studies, right? And before that, FAMPO paid for studies as well. So there have been a lot of studies on the section. And I would say the failing of these studies, and I'm not letting out a secret, I've said this to VDOT as well, is that the studies are focused too narrowly on 1 or 2 intersections. And they haven't looked at this thing as a big corridor with really big congestion problems. And we're trying now, and I think VDOT locally agrees with us, we're trying to get rather a bigger study that looks at this whole corridor and tries to anticipate long into the future, because we keep doing this, we keep fixing an intersection.
Yes.
And then the problem moves 2 intersections down. Now this study, this one would fix 3 intersections. But we have all agreed already, I think, that this is a big problem that needs a big solution. And the 2 solutions that we know about that will work are both really big and really expensive. The one is to, instead of tweaking these intersections, to rather build a new I-95 interchange on Harrison Road. That will drop the traffic on Route 3 immediately by a certain percentage. I forget the percentage. The other big thing that will work is one that Stephen Haynes used to say was a good solution, which is to take the 2 middle lanes, or to construct in the center, in the median of Route 3, 2 raised through lanes. And then the crossroads would go under it. So you would have, but it's a big concrete structure, like, right? Like on, so you would raise 2 lanes in the median
that you can't get off of at the first three intersections. You've got, it's for the through traffic, so it's split the through traffic. But again, it's a big concrete structure and it's somewhat unattractive if you believe in green trees and nature and all that. It's this big concrete. Both of them are big, both of them are really expensive, and so that's where we are.
Are you familiar with Front County Road up in Clifton?
Yeah.
Is it like that overpass where it goes? Okay. By Springfield
Well,
Mall?
we haven't designed it yet, but
But it'd be like that
It-
concept. Okay.
it would, there are different
It's not
ways
so
of
bad.
making it raised, but you'd have to find a way and you'd see this big concrete thing in
It
front of
did-
you when you're
It
running.
did, although it goes back to a point you always make, which is like, so I grew up in that area and I remember when that was built. And it reduced traffic for probably about 10 years. And now it's bumper to bumper.
Well, this project on this list, it will improve the situation a little on Route 3, right?
Mhm.
That's why Spotsylvania
Yeah.
submitted it, because it will
Mhm.
actually work. But it's not gonna work for a long time. We need a bigger solution for later. This is a shorter term solution to help a little bit. But it's not gonna fix your 25-year problem. We're gonna,
Sorry, there's development going on outside of this county. So right on the boundary with Orange County, they're talking massive residential properties. Where's that probably gonna go?
and I guess, I don't speak on behalf of the county, but I would say that the county would probably say that we need this, but number 5, because we can't do nothing, right? We can't let it get worse and worse and worse, so we need to do something while we're waiting for this big solution. That's, I guess, the motivation. But feel free if you're from the county to give a different.
Given
view.
that Route 3 is someplace that I avoided all about because it's so bad, I'm big, anything that changes that dynamic, even in the smallest degree, while a bigger, much more expensive, much longer debated project is. I move that we endorse it based on the assumption that this is to solve the east-west problem and not necessarily about those.
Specific.
It's because those intersections aren't
Small
bad in
fixes
those
for the big
directions
picture.
that we can then cut the traffic off in those, say the light cycle, and now you're a third or a fifth.
Do we have a second on that motion? Motion, this is a motion to endorse number 5. Is there a second? Okay, hearing no second.
I'll second.
Okay, then hearing a second, to further discussion? All in favor?
Well, limited, are we only doing 3?
You can do 4 if you want.
Then that's essentially saying no to number 5.
Yeah, you can't do, you can endorse 3 or 4, you can't endorse 5, obviously. Give us all.
Question on number 5, wouldn't it be akin to the nice study we did on 301? That was long,
Yes.
extended,
That's
it took into
from one
account
end of the county
everything
to
and
the
looked at it.
other. Yep.
That's what that study would be akin to, would it not?
Yep.
Or is it?
We need a study on Route 3 that would look at the whole length of Route
Right,
3.
and that's what he's saying.
That we try to find longer term.
Just like we did on 301,
Yes.
that long.
Yes, we did
This-
one, the entirety of King George County.
This is from not the most recent study, the previous study.
Yeah.
So it was ready to go because they've done the drawings and they've got everything ready. And so this project would fix this, well, it would go some way to improve those 3 choke points on Route 3. But it's not
As extensive.
it's not a 50-year solution.
For me, I have a hard time, I mean, I won't endorse this as one from our list, simply because I understand, because I was on the board at the time we did the 301 study. Until they do a study from one end of the county to the other of the entirety of Route 3.
Had a study, they just haven't enacted any recommendations.
So
But it's
then,
out
yeah,
there. They're sitting
Well,
around.
We've had about 5 studies
yeah, but.
on Route 3.
But they've been sections of Route 3. They didn't do the entirety like we did in King George. We did the entire thing at once. That way we could make informed decisions that would be beneficial far into the future.
Yeah, I just don't want perfect to, good enough to be.
And I understand, Yeah.
Good.
Right. I'm just saying I'm not saying remove it from the list. I'm just saying, I'm not in favor of.
Can we see a diagram of that?
Yes, it's in your pack.
Yeah.
Leader just showed it to you a minute ago.
Yeah. It was better already.
It's those three through cuts.
So before we decide on 5, though, we've heard an argument for 1 and 3 and 4, but I don't know that I really understand 2. Before we decide on 5, can we kind of compare
Sure.
2?
Remind me which one is two.
That's the,
No, no,
No,
no,
it's
that one we
208.
got a good explanation for.
Yeah, the 208.
So Joe made a case with 3, but we haven't had the full justification for 3 either.
Okay,
I would say.
So 208, pipeline study corridor improvements. This improves 2 intersections on 208. The Levels Road intersection on 208 and the Smith Station intersection on 208. So it does both. And it upgraded both intersections. And I think there's a map in your pack on that. And it comes out of this recent study of 208. So it's a very new study that's not even finished yet. It's still on go. And this project combines both intersection improvements into one project. And so it's like all the improvements that were recommended in the study in those 2 intersections and the bit in between. So it's not one intersection, it's both. The 208 one on the other list only upgrades 1 intersection. So this one upgrades 2 intersections.
Can we see the 208?
Yes. Pull up the picture. So it's more than one picture, I think. There you go. See there, it's the 2 pictures. So the next one, oh, you didn't get that one? I'm so sorry, but there on the screen, you've got it. So there's the Levels Road, Levels Road.
that's the FAMPO, that's in here, it's further.
No, it's duplication. So the county, that's why it got in trouble with VDOT, because it's duplication. So the FAMPO list has this levels intersection, the GWRC list has this levels intersection and the Smith Station intersection in one project, as if it's one project. So there's some duplication on the 208 studies. And then I think the county has another 208 project from the same study. And is it one or both of these or intersections on the Spotsylvania's list? No, you do know.
Sorry, do what?
So one or both of these intersections is also a submission on Spotsylvania's local list, and I can't recall which.
I know this one is, but I'm not sure about the other one. I know this is, in my eyes, this is more important than the other. There's tremendous backup on that north side.
This intersection or this project?
Well, to me, this project is, but I'm not sure what happened between the 2 of them. I don't remember what happened on.
That's the Stockholm Center.
As far as the,
Route 3 has been bad forever, this one's just recent, so that's why it feels worse, it's new.
yeah.
Al?
Yes.
Tremendous backup on both sides of that right there.
So if,
But I thought VDOT already had some design on that.
Thought they did too.
Yeah, I saw some plans on that, for that, but, I don't know whether that was some preliminary plans that they had or not.
This is a VDOT study.
I recognize, Mr. Watkins, so.
okay, thank you. So what I'm basically saying is, if on the FAMPO side, of the 4 that are chosen, there is the levels road, which is essentially the same as what we're looking at. That's in the GWRC.
The GWRC project has got plus an extra intersection.
Right, but levels is a part.
Yes, it is.
So that being the case, and hearing that the levels one is probably the most important intersection, then why don't we potentially consider not including that in the corridor pipeline study that's in GWRC?
can't change them now, right? We can only pick to remove.
Yes, you can't change them, but you can, well, you have to remove them. Well, FAMPO has to remove or not you specifically.
I agree. Just it.
Right, so if we were going to potentially eliminate one from the GWRC, it potentially could be this one, but since levels is already included in the FAMPO projects.
Well, and the course of action we talked about is not specifically saying, get rid of this, it is not endorsing. So I think what Al's proposing here is maybe not number 2, be getting endorsed,
Right, so if we,
because it's already covered.
and essentially, we are gonna do potentially 4 GWRC, and this one might be the one that's not endorsed by us.
That
What do you think of the other project that still remains?
the motion on the floor is still number 5. We're kind of discussing other
I'll
options
withdraw my
because
motion for
that,
now until we,
okay.
just so that that's not confusing things.
Okay, I agree.
Okay,
So we've endorsed 1, we've endorsed 4. We've now discussed 2. Do we have further discussion on 2? We want to discuss 3. We make any decision on what we endorse as our final.
I just wanted to say that number 3, and not only is there 350 acres of light industrial coming online in that area, there's also about 3,000 residential units that have been approved for between Able Lake and Hannah River. And those units are being built rapidly, the new roads being built in the subdivision. It's gonna blink our eyes overnight and see 1,000 units is what's gonna happen.
I feel like that happens every night. Can we look at can we have the map of number 3 on the
Yes.
board while we discuss this?
so my comment to you all is that the 3 roads in our region which have the most congestion, excluding I-95s, because we don't have a lot of control over I-95. But the 3 roads that have the most congestion in our region are Garrisonville Road, North Stafford, Warrington Road, US 17, and Route 3. And guess what? In this pack of 5, you've got projects on 2 of those 3 roads here in the pack. And Stafford County has got in their local list the 3rd one, right? So the 3 worst congested roads in our region, there are projects on each of the 3. I'm not sure whether they're the best projects on those 3, but they are projects on the 3 worst roads.
I will say that the counterpoint there, and I'm not, this doesn't necessarily betray my particular point of view. Mr. Brito has made a compelling argument, but counterpoint to me is that the congestion is elsewhere on 17. But at this point, it sounds like it's going to get where, sounds like, yeah,
It's moving west.
it's moving west,
I hear
it's creeping, and it would be nice to be proactive instead of reactive. But
I hear you.
so, but that is, the current issue is further east.
Frankly, I haven't picked one that I think strongly enough. That's the other reason that I'm shying away from giving you an opinion, because I'm still thinking through the scoring, and it's unclear to me which ones are going to score better this time around. I'm not even sure I'm going to reach a conclusion as to which will score better by the time we have to vote. It's very hard to, because so many of the rules changed this year that it's very difficult to do that. So I'm not obfuscating. I honestly haven't picked one that I think is terrible. I'm just trying to give you the facts of each one so that you know a little bit.
Let's say, while I'm here. Yeah, this road is being extended to high school number 6 and elementary school number 18. The college here is gonna have 500 new students from King George, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, and Stafford. So they're gonna be going down this section of road. Westlake is over here, 706 units, building a road in there now, 350 acres light industrial, then you have another about 400 units, that's by right, that's being developed, out west.
And in addition to that, probably most importantly, it means a PVC store.
I know that ABC store.
Another subdivision, Stafford Lakes, 100.
Yes.
I would just say, it sounds like we pretty much had unanimous consensus for our first two endorsements.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we are not going to have that for anything else. So, again, we don't necessarily have to
No,
endorse anymore.
it can just be like, do what you want, just please do these two.
Yes.
Is that how we want to move forward, or do I have any further motions?
We can endorse at the next meeting, right?
The TAC will decide before we meet.
You can endorse at the next meeting, but by the time you get to your next meeting, the TAC will have made a recommendation to the policy committee. The policy committee will not have voted yet, but the TAC will have made a recommendation.
And they probably won't choose.
We should meet between the TAC, we should meet between the TAC and the PC.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
So they won't have made, they've come up with their recommendation,
Correct.
but it hasn't gone to the public.
Right, but
Correct.
you go ahead and give
So
them
we could
these two
still say,
endorsements.
Yeah.
Correct. You can have another bite at the cherry before the policy committee votes.
Yeah.
And be clear about this, the TAC doesn't always come to a unanimous decision. So the TAC may be split, right?
So you can tell the TAC, these are the two that we have endorsed.
We will happily do that for you.
Sounds good. All right, well, in that case, do we want to move on?
Yep.
All right, policy committee meeting and text, speaking Della.
Okay, I typically try not to do every little detail, blow by blow account. And frankly, what you will find is that most things on the TAC agenda end up on the policy committee agenda, so it's almost like repeating it twice. So I'm gonna do it once, and on the next agenda, I'll just skip where it's missing.
Before you do that,
Yes, sir.
the one part that is very important, if you scroll up again. Public involvement.
Yes, sir.
We provided 2 letters to the policy committee. And my question basically is, we haven't seen policy committee minutes even as a draft yet, so I'm not sure, whether or not it's in there. But the other problem is the first letter was potentially adding another option that went to South Spain. And the second letter was about all the different documents to provide transparency relating to all the developments that were going to be placed. We wanted them to be, made available to FAMPO, to the consultant, and to the committees. We haven't obviously received any kind of feedback from the policy committee regarding any things that we requested. What do we do about that?
So the minutes are actually posted in a draft on the website. There.
Okay, I didn't see them but if they're there, I didn't see them yesterday. But they may be.
They were there before yesterday, so I'll check while we're talking.
Okay.
They should have been, Connor finished them, and I think he's posted them. I'll just double check. The answer to your question is, I guess there's a good answer and a bad answer. Which one do you want first? So, I mean, the bad answer is you elected these people, and I can't tell them what to do, right? So I serve them, they don't serve me. So I can't say to them, hey, you must now send a response to the CTAC. I can't do that. I'm staff. I know I talk a lot, but I'm actually just staff. So that's the bad news. I guess the thing is that you could go to the next policy committee and say, hey, we sent you 2 letters. We would like a response, please. Or you could write them a letter, which I could attach to the agenda, which says, hey, we sent you these 2 options. We would like a response. The fact that none of the policy committee members took up those issues in the meeting, though, is not a good sign.
Right.
So, and by that, I don't mean that they're showing you disrespect. I mean that they probably don't necessarily agree with you. That's my guess. But don't misquote me. I haven't asked them. I did not go around and say, hey, please, can you tell me what the answer is what's your opinion on these two letters? I have to be very careful that I don't usurp their elected position. And I really do sometimes take it right up to the limit, and sometimes I've got to say to myself, hey, you're staff, shut up. So I don't want to push beyond my station in the institution. But they didn't take either issue up in the later discussion when there's a section in the agenda where they are allowed to comment on anything. Any member comments, and they didn't comment.
I also transmitted the transparency letters to Supervisor Bonke as chairwoman of Stacker Board and Mayor Devine on advice of staff as the best representatives to send to each body. I have not received a response.
Just walking across the hall.
I do work with Mayor Devine, but I sent it to her official email as mayor as an official action, and I have received no response from either. So I will do what CTAC tells me.
Now, we do have the recourse to be able to do things like going online and looking at the specific projects, this one being the villas that Town Celebrated. And we can see that there's active work being done by the county to question certain things and ask for, updates from the developer and so forth. But this basically means that no, nothing's been approved obviously yet, but it's in the process of going through the process of where ultimately they will probably answer all the questions that the county has, then whether or not it will come before the Board of Supervisors or the planning.
That's, Silver put it by right development, that what he alleges by right. I've contacted the Commissioner of Revenue. He says that property, the golf course, is designated as open space in the tax records and can't be developed. So we got about $1 million in reduced taxes because of that designation. Now he's saying he wants to develop it. Going after it.
They do obviously butt heads a little bit, but ultimately, I think that they try to work it through. Now, in this particular project, what I would like to have happen is that, that FAMPO through the consultant continue to work towards the different options that potentially interfere with a project like this. Then ultimately, if we beat them, to the finish line, if an option that's prevalent and it does interfere, that then of course the developer comes back and says, hey, can we take advantage of what you're doing with this, this new roadway?
The consultant is currently operating on following assumption that the NEON project has been voted through, therefore the alignment of a potential connection to accommodate that development because it was approved. However, for the other 4 or 5 developments, nothing is approved by the jurisdictions, by Stafford or by the city at this point in time. So they are operating on the basis that there is still room to adjust those plans of the various developers once the corridor of a potential roadway has been agreed to as a preferred alternative. So they're not, oh, we can't go there because there's this silver development.
Right.
They're not ignoring the options that would go through that piece of land just because somebody's got a potential plan. Have some understanding that the 2 jurisdictions are keeping an eye on those 5 different developments and would liaise with us if those come up for a decision at this point, so that we don't get sort of sandbagged. So we're not saying, oh, we can't build there because there's now an artist impression of what something might be one day.
Yeah, see, that's the central problem, because even when you go online to look for the information that's associated with the project, one of the things that we had asked for in the second letter were things like site plans, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, those have to be created because, and are available because the county is looking at that, and making questions, the things that are obviously on the site plan. But we don't know whether or not FAMPO has received the site plans for the project. I'm assuming not.
The only thing we got, is the original 2022 site map that was
Right.
given to the residents of Celebrate Virginia for their comments. We received a copy of that via Celebrate Virginia residents. And so I have passed that over to our consultants who are looking at these options. So they have a copy of that, but it's not a kind of site plan that's ready to roll. It's
Right.
it's a suggestion. So
Yeah, because in the questions that the county is asking back of the developer, they're asking things like, can you move this curve here, and so forth, which means there's obviously a tremendous amount of detail available. So it's disconcerting that the county has the plans and yet the consultant doesn't. And World FAMPO doesn't. So that's the disconnect that we had hoped for in letter two, to be able to get a result.
yeah, I understand.
So I'm just gonna, make a suggestion, possibly, you're presenting it in the wrong manner. So you're wanting these plans to be given to FAMPO and then to CTAC, but you're sending your letter to FAMPO. Your letter should be to the board of supervisors.
Well, that's what I did send that to the board of supervisors and to city council through Supervisor Bonke, Mayor Devine.
You send it to individuals. Need to send it to the board.
Okay, well, I was advised by FAMPO staff that was the best way to distribute it,
Oh, yeah.
but I will.
I'm
Send it
I'm
there.
offering you, if you want to get it done, that's it.
Okay, if that's what CTAC wants, I can.
I motion that we send it to boards of supervisors, city council.
Individual members.
And I would add, well, I was gonna add the city manager and the acting county administrator for Stafford. The city manager is well aware because I had a meeting in his office. But the county changed their administrator, and so
Yeah.
now the new one, I haven't had a meeting. The interim one.
So the motion is for me to, as chair.
Chair.
Send this.
Same letter.
To those.
Just to send it to all those people.
Can I get those emails from staff? Okay. All right, well, we have the motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
We have, all in favor?
aye.
All opposed?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Motion passes. Back to the agenda item.
Yes, okay, so if we can scroll down. I'm not gonna talk about minutes and those, tip resolutions, we don't spend a lot of time on them because basically FAMPO does not allocate money via the tip process. All we do is acknowledge that whichever agency has the funding to spend on this project, and we have been requested to approve it in our tip so that they can continue spending the money. The tip process never allocates a dime to anybody anywhere. It's actually a negative thing. It's the only way FAMPO can stop a project, but it does not allocate money to a project. It just gives technical approval from federal regulations to allow them to continue spending money. So we don't make a big fuss about these because the only thing we can do is vote no and stop the project, and that'll result in screaming. But if you want to vote against a project, it's better to vote against the funding when the funding is being considered, because that's when you make a real difference. So we don't spend a lot of time on this. This is just changing some details about FXB goes, transit maintenance facilities, HVAC. So that's all that was. And the next one is the Safe Streets and Roads for All Action Plan, which you all heard about. You had a presentation. It was approved. So that plan is now the adopted Safe Streets for All action plan for our region. The next one is an additional planning grant to do some safety planning for an additional set of streets for Spotsylvania and for Caroline County, and an implementation grant for Stafford County, Spotsylvania County. So those are new grants that we are applying for now this year, and the policy committee endorsed us carry on doing that. Stafford County requested a letter of support because Stafford County is doing an independent, much bigger planning project for Safe Streets for All, and we just gave a supporting letter. And then the resolution directing a public comment period for our Unified Planning Work Program. That's basically the FAMPO business plan. I believe you saw a copy of this at your last meeting. So that put the UPWP out for public comment. It's currently out for public comment, and CTAC endorsed it at their meeting on Monday this week with 2 small amendments. There were 2 errors. We fixed the errors. Endorsed. Then the CMAC allocations. This was a whole controversial business. We've finished the controversy, and the copy that you've got tonight, which you endorsed tonight, is the result of all of that discussion. But it basically boiled down to one jurisdiction requesting that we set aside some of this money to prepare projects for the next round of smart scale and any studies. The TAC initially voted for that. Policy committee voted no, stop that, put the money back and allocate it to projects. So policy committee basically reversed the TAC decision. The money was put back into the pot, and it's all in the list which you got in your pack tonight. So
Why do they oppose it?
actually, in the end, on technical grounds, because those who pushed for us to set that money aside should have done it in November before they submitted their projects for this round. They didn't vote on it in November. They waited until we already knew how much money we've got, or we already knew who'd submitted all their projects, and we'd already started the process of allocating money. And then they said, oh, everyone's put aside some money. And so the policy committee said, no. Even the jurisdiction whose staff had applied for that money, that jurisdiction also said, no, we don't think that's the right way to do it. Follow the letter of the law as to what the methodology says. Also, we had asked for $4,600 to support our internal funding from this list because we had a shortfall in our funding for the Department of Rail Public Transportation. However, that department revised their annual allocation of funding to us, and it went up. So we no longer needed that money, so we put it back in the pot as the FAMPO staff also. Basically, there are no special treatments for anybody as a result of all of this discussion, but it was a very long, drawn-out discussion. You scroll down, Lisa. And then there was just correspondence, the CTB meeting, and I would like to point that out to you, but it's on your agenda tonight as well, so I might as well just deal with it now, Mr. Chair, if I may. Sure. So the CTB's public hearing, it happens every spring. It's happening this week, tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. until probably around 5:36 p.m. At the VDOT auditorium at 86 Deacon Road, where we had the public hearings on the river crossing. It's the same venue, and the Secretary for Transportation is always there. The head of VDOT is there. The head of GRPT is there, and some of their staff, and our CTB member usually attends, and it's an opportunity for you all, if you wish to go and give your own input on what the state of Virginia is going to fund the next 6 years. So this is your opportunity to talk to the big wigs who are the head of everything. And if you wish to, please go along. If you wish to speak, they usually at the registration table ask you to give your name if you wish to speak. So then they give the secretary the list of people who wish to speak, and then he has a list and he'll call your name, and then you have 3 minutes or whatever to speak. And I'm going to be there, and 2 of the supervisors from the policy committee will be there to give some comments as well. The RTA subcommittee has been postponed after this meeting. The chairperson asked me to postpone the meeting because they want to see what the changes are to taxation in Virginia as a result of the General Assembly's budget. The governor had a budget which the General Assembly rejected. The General Assembly came up with a budget. The governor sent them how many hundred changes? No, like 226 changes or something. And they're not happy with those. So now they've been having meetings and they're going to try and come to a unified budget. But it may or may not have taxation implications. For example, there's this request. He vetoed the sales tax. They vetoed his sales tax and he vetoed their sales tax, basically. I'm not using the correct language, but that's what happened. He wanted 1% sales tax increase so that he could reduce the personal income tax. And the General Assembly wanted 1% for schools. And he didn't want that. So they vetoed each other, basically. So now they're trying to get a unified budget together, which is a compromise. And some policy committee members wish to hear the outcome of that before they vote the Regional Transportation Authority. And so it was postponed, and the meeting will now be the 30th of May. That last item had to do with the FAMPO administrator. I'm sure you've all heard of him, and his annual leave. They wanted to make a change to my annual leave, and so they went into closed session because they're not supposed to discuss staff. And they decided to change it from, they wanted to give me an extra 40 hours of leave, and they changed it to 48 hours of leave. And because Stafford does all the payroll for GWRC, and Stafford's system doesn't allow you to add 40 hours to anybody's leave. It's got to be in increments of a certain number, and 40 doesn't divide by the number. So that what they'd done was wrong, and they had to redo it. So that's what happened. Anyway, next. I think that's it. So if we can go to the TAC agenda, and I'm going to just skip the items that are duplicated. All right. So the UPWP was endorsed by the TAC. You've seen it, as I said, with the 2 amendments. The FXV Go Transit Maintenance Facility HVAC that was endorsed by the TAC. That's the one that I think is on your agenda tonight that you've already talked about. And then there are these TIP amendments. There are a whole bunch of them. The only one that's controversial is that number B. Because it's so big, it's $200 and some odd million. And the thing to know about that is, first of all, it's old money. The Transforming Rail in Virginia project is several years old. They're getting to the end of the funding allocations, and they've realized that they haven't put that project in our TIP and in the TIP for the Northern Virginia region and so on. So they're now quickly trying to get those projects all into our TIPs so that they can spend the money. Because if it's not in our TIP, it's a violation of federal code for them to spend the money. So they've asked us to add it. But a big fight has ensued because VDOT sent us the request saying that the person who's going to administer those 280 million, whatever it is going to be DRPT. DRPT vehemently denies us and says, we're not administering any of this money. It's not us. Take our name off there. And so we're in a bit of a quandary because we can't amend that. The applicant has to amend it. So we're trying to get the right person at VDOT to change that. But DRPT has come back to us and said, no, actually, it should be the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. And they haven't actually told us that. And VDOT sent us the request. So we're trying to sort that mess out. But anyway,
It's a lot of money, but it's old money, it's not new money. And it's from this project which has been going on for years, you know, that it.
Yeah.
It includes all these station upgrades, it includes highway upgrades, it includes this third track that they're building to DC, it's all that stuff, it's a huge amount. So we're just trying to get the facts right. The rest are all very uncontroversial. There's a new commuter lot, Route 1 at Commonwealth Drive, there's Red Transit, FXB goes security and fiber project, allocating money to that, and then 2 transit support vehicles for FXB go as well. Next. CMAC STTB, done that. LRTP update. There is a little thing there. If you could click on that now, this is just for information. We didn't ask for any decision. But the current LRTP, that's the Long Range Transportation Plan 2050, was adopted in March 2022. We have to redo it or update it every 5 years. That means by March 2027, we have to have finished writing the 2055 update and have it approved by the policy committee by March 2027. And it's a 900-page document. So we have to start before 2027. So what we did in 2012, before I was even in the United States, is that we did scenario planning first to say, well, what happens if we have another pandemic? What happens if we have automated vehicles? What happens if the population goes faster than we expected? What happens, you know, so do some scenarios, and we need to get a consultant to help with that because you need a neutral person who facilitates the discussion. If we do that, and it costs some money, so we have to decide to do it, and we have to decide to allocate some money. We have to do that in financial year 2026, which is not the year that's starting on 1st of July this year, but the year that starts 1st of July next year. Then we have to actually write the LRTP in early financial year 2027. So that's exactly the following year, because by the March of that financial year, we have to have finished it. And to do it, we also have to have a consultant to do a thing called the systems performance report. It looks at the transportation systems in the region and if they're functional and all that's a technical criteria which FAMPO staff can't do. You need a consultant. But that also needs a little bit of funding. So I pointed this out because we have to plan ahead. So next time we hand out any money at FAMPO, we're going to have to think about how we're going to fund those 2 things. Or we can decide we're not going to do the scenario. That's the decision that FAMPO must take. What we cannot not do is write a new long-range transportation plan 2055 update by March 2027. That's the one thing you have to do. So I was just alerting everyone to that.
As someone who was part of that 2012, if you don't do scenarios, what's your other option?
Well, you then focus on, so you still do the analysis of the changes in population, changes in demographics, environmental issues. You still look at you run the travel demand model to look at what the traffic's going to be now, what the likely traffic will be in 2055. You then look at what projects we're going to need to fund between now and 2055, and we put those in the constrained long-range plan at the end of the document. We will also have a bike and pedestrian plan looking at the future, and we also look at equity issues. There's this equity chapter that we have to deal with. So we still do all of that other work.
Okay, we did all of that.
But we won't have looked at potential big changes that might impact us over the period, and that's what the scenario planning
Right, right. So I guess I'm trying to understand, do you lose a piece of the puzzle by not doing it?
My opinion, yes. However, not everyone agrees, and you have to vote some money to make it happen.
Right. And so I brought that up to share with you all, because obviously we're not the deciders. Okay, the policy committee is. But again, do have the opportunity to provide our feedback and we can have further discussions on that. But I do know that I felt as a member of the board of supervisors at that time, the scenarios were extreme.
We, just in this, for the sake of time, maybe have a briefing on the long range transportation plan at a future meeting. Yes. So let's put that down. Is that okay with everyone? Okay.
Yes,
Uh,
next. Thanks, Leader. Okay, so that's the CMAC spreadsheet which you've got earlier tonight. They recommended it. The smart scale pre-application project status update. You've talked about those projects tonight. We're looking at a letter to the CTB just talking about the difficulties with this round of smart scale, but we haven't finished the letter, we're still working. And then correspondence, just the public meeting. Conformity process will come to an end in December next year. That is a process to do with air quality. We have to prove that our roadway projects are not making the air quality worse. And there's a process to do that. But because we don't have a major air quality problem, and as a result of a court case in Florida, on the 31st of December 2025, we no longer have to prove that our projects don't make the air quality worse. I'm giving you the layman's version of that. There's a much more complicated and longer version. SS4A we've done, and the river crossing, there was a brief update. Where I don't know if I want to go and rehash the whole thing for you, but that's on the agenda. It's up to you.
Being that that was an update that we're not generally looking as part of our agenda, and it was results of the MetroQuest survey, I think it's something we should look at it. And
You want me to do it now? I can do that.
I mean, I actually,
No, you're biased. Okay, click on it quickly. I won't belabor the point a lot. So this is the survey results and the stakeholder meeting and what's happened since then. Just scroll down. Next one. So that's just, we've sent what they call agency coordinating letters to all of the impacted environmental agencies and river protection groups in this region that might be impacted by this bridge and roadways, and also all of the state of Virginia entities that may have an interest in this project, asking them to comment on the 4 corridors that were proposed and whether they think there are any negative impacts that might happen if the bridge and the roadways are built there. So they're busy receiving the feedback from those particular agencies, and they'll let us know in due course what the feedback was. Next. And there's the list of them. They sent letters to all of those agencies to ask for their input on the river crossing or bridge options. Next one. Down again. So this is the survey, it was a MetroQuest survey. Now this was run by the consultant, not by FAMPO. But I must say it's giving fairly similar results to the survey that FAMPO ran 2 years ago. Not vast difference. 263 participants in total. 171 of them provided their zip code, so we were able to look at where they live. You know, who says what. But the majority of them agreed with the purpose and need. So people do feel that there's a need. The top concerns are congestion, environmental protection, and neighborhood impacts. That seems pretty obvious. There you can see on the right, participation by jurisdiction. Stafford County had the most participants, followed by the city of Fredericksburg with 26%, and Spotsylvania County was 21%, and then like 1, 1, 1, 1, and various other places. 1% from King George and 1% Carolina. Down. Next. So the interactive map, people put pins on the map
and wrote all their comments. And so that's just a summary. We got people dropped 371 pins. They clustered there in various places. So you can see lots of participation, lots of comments, lots of, you need to worry about the cemetery over here. And what about the, you know, the sensitive environmental area over there? So lots of those. You can see there congestion, safety, bicycles, pedestrian issues, environmental issues, etc. Next one. There are the dots. You can see where the actual pins went. Next one. Next. Okay, this is what Alan was referring to. So of the options that the public could comment on, you've seen the survey. So on there are the 4 bridge options, 4 roadway options, and then the no build option, which you also have to test, right? If the public doesn't want this, the public will say no. And so the no build option got the lowest number of votes. They were just not the majority. The highest number of votes went to option A, second highest option B, third highest actually was option D, which is the one that goes up Greenbank Road. And then the stone last was option C. Public don't really like that option. Next slide. This is even more interesting. So of those, you can see there that Stafford County residents and Spotsylvania County residents want option A. They don't want no build. In fact, the lowest score for no build came from the residents of Spotsylvania.
Can we send that in a letter to?
You can send them a copy of the slides. And that's the consultant ran, so I have no influence on this whatsoever. And then the city of Fredericksburg option is also, the Stafford is what I expected. The city and Spotsylvania, I actually didn't expect that result. The city people want option B, which the staff of the city tells me is a terrible option because there's that wetland and they don't want us to go anywhere near the wetland. Well, the public wants the one that goes right near the wetland. So help me, that's what the public says. And then Spotsylvania also, I didn't expect option A to be so popular in Spotsylvania, but it is. There it is. There's the numbers. Next slide. There you can see it broken down by zip code for you in each of the jurisdictions. Tells you the same story just in more detail. Next. And all of this is online, by the way. You can go to the FAMPO website and you can see it for yourself. And now what they've done is the written comments where they put, I don't like this, and what about this? And so they've taken all those long form written comments and put them in groups for you. So those are in favor of option A, that's why they're in favor. And why people are against it. They're the written comments and why they're against it. Farmland along Sanford Road, disrupts future development, negative environment, there they are. Next one.
Good, I just
Yeah.
interject a little bit. As a private citizen, seeing that this was gonna be a part of the TAC committee, and I offer that. Because the one thing I wanted to point out to them that you probably noticed right away, is there's a lot of contradiction. And I just wanted to kind of understand that accepting anything from survey necessary. So forth. For example, pro minimal environmental impacts, and then the cons, negative environmental impacts. Obviously, it's a little bit contradictory. And other things too, like best option for station 12 response. Station 12 is the firehouse that is along Plantation Road, just north of Route 7. The talks about response to be able to get to Mary Washington Hospital. And the thing that I pointed out to the TAC is that that would probably be a wonderful reason if all the different incidents and calls that the EMTs had to make took place at their station house. But essentially, they have to leave the station house and go somewhere else to make a call to handle whatever emergency there is, and then get to the Mary Washington Hospital.
So Alan's basic point is correct. These are unfiltered comments from the public. There's no comment as to whether these are correct, good, bad, ugly. This is just this is what the public says. We don't make any comment on what the public says, that's what the public says. Next slide.
Exactly. Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Now, you.
Well, you, sorry, I shouldn't say yes.
Coup d'etat.
You said it was unexpected in your eyes about, Spotsylvania.
Just my opinion.
And Stafford, endorsing, option A. Okay. But these are all members of the public.
Yes.
Okay. They're not people that are transportation oriented.
They're not
And-
experts.
And they are only looking at the options that you gave them.
Well, that's assumed, yeah.
Okay, all right, but they're not looking at some of the options that he and I, and he are looking at as far as Spotsylvania is concerned, and looking at what we think it's gonna do to Route 3 West. They're only looking at the options that you gave them.
Well, because we as staff don't have a mandate to change those options. The
I know.
policy committee.
That's why we
would
wrote the letter to
And
Paulson.
that's why I said, though, they only picked that because they thought that was the best of those.
Correct,
But that doesn't mean if they were given another option further out, that those same citizens wouldn't have picked the other one
correct.
really highly.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay, thank
We
you.
gave them those options, but we did also give them the noble option. So they could have picked,
Well, they want to build,
they want a bridge.
so,
I think,
yeah.
I think that's true.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Do we have action on this that's taken in the next month?
No,
Because I feel like this is a much bigger discussion than. Would it be possible to put this on the agenda next month or possibly?
absolutely. The consultant is doing a meeting with the stakeholders, with jurisdictions, with the counties and the city. Start, in June. And I'm not sure the timing of that meeting versus the timing of your meeting, but the clever thing to do would be straight after that meeting, when new information is available, to put it on your agenda, because then you can consider this plus the new information and have a very long discussion about both. So that would make
Do we want to
sense.
put it on the August agenda then?
Yes.
You can do it, yes, whenever. I'll do it whenever you want to do it.
Yeah, because that brings up the question is, I think we're scheduled to probably meet with the consultant possibly one time during the fall. And I'm considering that for whatever input that we were making, that might be kind of late. That if we could potentially meet with them, at, the August meeting or something like that, that might work better so that we could provide the input. Because when we finally get to them in the fall, they've essentially probably narrowed it down to like 2 already without having the opportunity to speak to us.
I have no objection to that.
You can have them whenever you think appropriate. We as staff won't tell you what you should do as a committee. We have budgeted to have them present to you at least once, so you can tell us when you want.
Quick question, for the folks who nominated, Mr. Welsh for, chair. Do we know if they'll be at the next meeting? So,
I don't think we'll have another graduation.
well, I just ask, I just want to, because I feel like if we do want to worry about scheduling meeting with the consultant for August, then the next chair should be involved in those conversations. Is all my concern. So do we know if he'll be at the next meeting?
Pardon?
If-
No, I do not know.
We do not know.
I know he could not be at this meeting because
Right.
of graduation,
Okay. I mean,
like Virginia Tech.
that could still also be a conversation with the vice chair. Okay, so I just considerations that I think need to be made.
So you want, first of all, to discuss this and what the stakeholder group is going to get at their next meeting. And you want to speak to the consultant. So I'm happy for all three of those things. Yeah, I'm going to leave it to you guys to decide when you want to do that.
Okay,
Whenever you want, we'll make it happen.
can we put discussion of the timing of that on the agenda for next
Yes.
meeting? Cause I wanna make sure that we remember.
Would we discussing this?
Yeah, discuss, when to discuss the results of the survey, what's gonna be presented to the, sorry, my brain's not working. And the consultant, and meeting with the consultant.
Could we schedule the meeting regarding this discussion in June right now then?
I'd be okay with that, is everyone else okay with that?
Just say that
We
again.
do have a few things on the agenda.
Or very-
The idea was to go after the daily meeting between consultant. So that we would have the newest information after that. When is that meeting?
And I have to check on my calendar. If you just give me 1 moment, I'll tell you the answer. It's in June and it's on my calendar. I just have to go to June and find the.
To be clear, while he's doing that, the BRE is giving a presentation in June. And we've already pushed, we've pushed another things to June as well, so I don't want to get that overcrowded, but that is something to keep in mind.
I'm starting to panic. There's lots of my doing this, so we all of them.
The 30th? No, the stakeholders, so like the last Thursday of the month, I think.
Yeah. which
Okay, so
means
we
it's
would be
gonna-
before that.
It's gonna be too late. But it's the last.
So do we want to just have we wanted to combine this information with what the information from stakeholder. Right?
Yes, it's up to you. I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm
That's
just.
what we think, okay. So then we'll just push it all to August, but still discuss the scheduling of this in the June meeting, but tentatively say August. Is that okay with everyone?
Well, what the stakeholder meeting inclusion, whatever gets discussed at that meeting, the last Thursday of this month, will still be before our meeting next June.
Right. If the stakeholder meeting is in June, the last Thursday. I'll find out on my calendar. You were saying it's the last Thursday.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
Your meeting here,
Stakeholder meeting will take place, is what I'm.
there isn't a May stakeholder meeting.
Okay.
So if you remember at the last stakeholder meeting, they decided to skip one,
Right.
so that the consultant could finish the traffic modeling, because they really want the traffic modeling for the next meeting. So that they don't have a meeting about a small amount of stuff, they'd rather have a meeting that's meaningful. So it's gonna be in June, the last Thursday, so that all the modeling of the travel demand model will be done for the June.
We don't meet in July, so.
Yes. And no meetings.
All right, August then.
Well, but we could still discuss.
We
this.
should discuss this and oh, you're saying discuss this in June.
Yeah.
So split them up.
So there's no reason why we can't take this that you're seeing in short form tonight, and you have a further discussion about it in June.
I'm just worried about short
available.
form.
Oh,
You said we have other things that got pushed to June.
Okay.
So this may, I would be worried that this would extend that meeting just for us to turn around and discuss it all again in August with the new information as well.
My ideal would be to do it all in August, but if we want to discuss them, discuss.
okay.
Do we want to bring it to a vote?
I think, since I was the only one pushing
Okay,
back.
all right. Thank you.
But maybe then what you want to do to help is to actually not schedule too many other things in August. Because
Okay.
it sounds like you're gonna want to have an extended discussion about this topic. And we don't want you to be here for midnight mass, so maybe we put all the other type stuff onto your June agenda so that you can do more time on this in August.
Okay,
A
that's fine.
suggestion from me.
A suggestion for me too. I'm not in charge of this in August.
Oh, yeah. Well, suggestion to all of you, like, I would suggest you do that, because otherwise your meetings tend to, you'll have one very long meeting.
I, for one, say we should pilot all in September, whatever. All right,
Okay, should you want me to carry on with this or do you want me to stop?
I would like to move on. Is that okay with everyone else?
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
You just do one thing, I'm sorry, you go back and look at slide 12, just one other point that I made for the map. Okay, I mean, looking at the map and the way it was described even at the stakeholder meeting and at the fact, is that option A is the eastern choice.
Yeah.
Right, and the point that I made when I spoke CTAC is essentially that being eastern, the close proximity of all of these essentially means they are the western choices. And they're very close to each other because two of them, you know, exit off of the Celebrated Christian Parkway and then the Green Bay Parkway. So the point that I made is if you're kind of looking like, okay, there's this unique one that's east, and there's these other ones that are essentially all west, then you have 3.2 versus 8.2. If you combine BC.
Doesn't work. The math doesn't, unfortunately, the argument, the math doesn't work like that because those are scores, they're not votes. So if you redo this same thing and have another public engagement exercise where you only give them two options, you may not get the result that Alan is telling you. You may get a very different result. But we don't know that because we haven't done that. So it's an argument from speculation. I don't want you. It
There's a reason they
may
do
be the
polls.
way that he says, but it may be very different. All we know is what we actually know. We don't know what might have.
There's a reason they do polls with third-party candidates and without third-party candidates. Basically, the results do change.
I, for one, would love to have 4 separate surveys and each one only have 2 options. Because then we'd get
Yes.
a certain outcome.
That'd be great.
But we then keep the consultant busy with
Yes.
many surveys and
So,
these are ranked. Everybody had a chance to rank and we didn't force them. So they might have only ranked 4 out of the 5 because they only liked 4 out of. We didn't, the survey didn't force any. It said you can rank up to 5, here are the 5. And
Yeah,
your
so
point
for
is,
example,
your point is equally,
Bill, you wouldn't have even ranked it.
Right, you wouldn't rank anything else, you just rank no bill, that's your one. And
Yeah.
so, back to TAC agenda.
yes. You know? And actually, that's the end of the sentence.
All right. And I believe you already did the VDOT CTV book
Yes,
meeting news.
please go if you wish to get
All right,
involved.
member reports.
Okay. Guess, Robert was talking earlier about the improvement, near the Lowe's, yeah. Move to South Point. Shrink the map a little bit. And, Walmart's here, Lowe's is here. Talking about this road here, can you shrink it so it goes to Route 1?
So there's Route 1 on the right hand side.
Yeah, that's Route 1.
Okay, Route 17 is like over here. Hold it up. There we go. So now, why can't this go to connect to here? This is really undeveloped land, there's probably no utilities there, there might be some wetlands in the way. But I would think that this connection coming to here would, or even down below it, would relieve a lot of this traffic in here.
VDOT has a project right now. They've already drawn some plans up, actually to come in right here, come around, there are several, a smoothie right here, a Latin restaurant right here, come in, put in a 4-lane road from right here, come in and tie in right along in here, with traffic light here, traffic light right there where you go into Chick-fil-A. This 4-lane, left turns coming southbound here, eliminate left turns coming northbound right here. And if you want to go to Cracker Barrel coming down southbound, gotta go up to Walmart, come down and go straight across. Coming northbound, you'll turn left here on dual left turns here, go down to 4 lane. Here to this light, dual left turns here, go that way. Want to go this way, come down, turn right here, dual right turns. Come around on the dual road, dual right turns here, go that way. That's a plan right now that they're looking to put into smart scale for the future. And they say, which with a traffic signal here, so right here, another right here, as a former traffic engineer and consultant, I said, no, it's not gonna work. You can't put 2 more signals in here at less than 300 feet from the existing one and make it work. Well, they had their traffic signal plans there. They had their transportation people there at our meeting last week. And they changed my mind. They said it is the only solution to this location. And it'll change it from an F level of service back to a B or C at that location. Now, again, no left turns northbound, no left turns southbound at that location, but you're moving them to other places. And so that essentially is doing what you're saying, except it's happening right here instead of happening now. You can't come from up here because that's private property.
Oh, but up here, saying between the Lowe's and Walmart, there's a stub here coming around. And that's here.
This is all, the reason Vaco's companies did not develop this, that's all wetlands down through there. Otherwise, they would have had buildings on that long before.
But they can elevate.
Give you a better idea, but I'll start.
They can elevate the road. That was my first objection to that is that, hey, if that's wetlands, and they said that area right there, they can do it for a road, but they can't do it for the buildings.
Straight line is always better than a skew one for traffic. And you can't add more traffic lights to speed road.
No.
You actually need less traffic. So I think, all due respect to VDOT, actually there are multiple options there that they could have looked at, and it sounds to me like they've picked 2 to compare when there are actually other options.
It wasn't until I saw the elimination of all the left turns that I said, okay, that changes things when you're cutting out a lot of the left turns and making people do right turns and do loops. That changed the whole, the west. And they have looked at a lot of other options. And there was another option, but it was a $400 million overpass. And it was gonna take many years in order to do that. And so it was also to essentially, it was gonna be so much traffic there that trying to build something like that, that they said, we can't live with that kind of a traffic jam in that area. And
But I'm saying if they build another route, that they wouldn't even have to impact the existing road. And there's probably no utilities there, and there might be some wetlands, but that could be elevated to avoid it, just like they do in Georgia and South Carolina.
they've had several studies done in that area. There is another called the Germanna Point connector going from Germanna Community College, coming around, if you're familiar with where Hooters is, connecting around to there, that would relieve some of the Route 17 traffic and get it off of that area, but that's not gonna solve the problem either. That's just gonna help.
Hooters in South Africa is a whole lot different Hooters in the US.
I'm not sure it is.
We're not
So.
gonna ask you to explain that.
So, moving on, I believe that's something that can be discussed ad nauseum, but I have work tomorrow. So, any other member reports? Okay, public comment.
Anybody else publicly?
Okay, the future agenda items, I've mentioned the VRE before, we also talked about, I talked with John about OmniRide or VDOT. Obviously, that says August, with everything we pushed to August, we'll bring it up with Tim.
So for us to prepare meetings for you, what's your guidance? You want us to ask BW to do a presentation in June?
That is important to me, this is important to everyone else. I think VRE's been going through a lot of changes coming up. I think it'd be good to hear from them about what's going on. Especially because some of those changes are this summer, are they not? So I think it would be a good idea to hear from them in June. Is that okay with everyone? But OmniRide and VDOT, we can talk
Push
to them.
off to the new chair.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mara is in favor.
That's for June 12th.
I had to go to Richmond this morning and I live in Alexandria.
Really?
I know how you feel.
We're living on Andrew.
Old Town, well,
Harrison.
south of Old Town. Do you know where Eisenhower is? That sort of area.
Yeah.